Prime Minister explains Lombrum deal with Australia. Policeman involved in ALotau incident arrested. And movement of city residents restricted during APEC Summit.
This is National EMTV News with Merba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Wednesday's news. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has told Parliament today that the Australian government will give 4 new naval ships to the Papua New Guinea Defence Force to be based at Lombrum, Manus. The Prime Minister was responding to questions raised by Manus Governor Charlie Benjamin on the proposed establishment of an Australian naval base and the closure of the Manus Regional Processing Centre.
After 4 weeks of speculation and denial, finally some firm word on what Papua New Guineans can expect. The Prime Minister told Parliament that Papua New Guinea will be receiving 4 naval vessels that will replace the 4 patrol boats currently used by PNG DF.
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform this Honourable House that the Australian government has donated some new boats, naval boats, to Pacific Island nations, and Papua New Guinea is receiving 4 of them.
The question on whether the Australian government will be building a naval base in Manus has been asked since September. Still no firm word from the PNG government. The office of the PNG DF commander also denied any construction of an Australian naval base. But the Australian political rhetoric has been that a base will be built to counter China's growing influence. For Australia and the US, that is an ideal scenario for both militaries.
Recent announcement with the Australian Prime Minister, the Honourable Scott Morrison, about the future use of the naval base in Manus is that Papua New Guinea has got an ongoing defence cooperation agreement with Australia. I believe since 1975. It is not a new defense cooperation, but a cooperation that has been reviewed from time to time.
Manus has always been a strategic location in the Pacific in terms of military placement and economic routes. It is also a key feature in Australia's Pacific solution, the Refugee Detention Centre. The PM's statement on Manus was in response to questions by the Manus governor. Charlie Benjamin said the asylum centre deal and the proposed establishment of a naval base were discussed on international platform without the input of political leaders from Manus province.
Do you recognize that Manus has a governor? And I, Charlie Benjamin, am the current governor of Manus province, placed there by the constitutional laws of Papua New Guinea. Does Australia recognize that as well? And who is the enemy that the Australian Navy is worried about, or PNG is seeking Australian help to help us guide against?
As Port Moresby gears up for the APEC Leaders Summit next week, the undercurrent of geopolitics is already being played out, with move and counter-move by China, Australia and the US. Papua New Guinea is trying to make the best of it and reap the benefits. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Still in Parliament, Manus Governor Charlie Benjamin raised his concerns about the Regional Detention Centre during question time. He directed his question to Prime Minister Peter O'Neill on matters regarding the detention centre as well as the human rights of the 70,000 people of Manus.
To clear the name of Manus.
The Manus governor questioned Prime Minister Peter O'Neill on the human rights of the people of Manus province. The governor raised his concerns after recent incidents where young girls were abused by the refugees living in the detention centre. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill responded that these matters of abuse are taken into consideration and the person responsible for abusing the rights of Manus citizens will be arrested and dealt with.
Arrest every person who is of course, abusing the rights of our citizens on the island. That has never been our intention to allow our people to suffer. But as a citizen within the region, it is our obligation to also give a helping hand when others need it as well.
For wrong reason.
Meanwhile, the governor of Manus is concerned that the situation in the regional detention center is making Manus famous throughout the world for all the wrong reasons.
Can the government of Papua New Guinea, who partnered with that of Australia in this project, immediately embark on a measure to clear the name of Manus and compensate Manus and its people for the damage they have caused to us internationally, as we have done our part very well.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill said arrangements are currently being made with the Australian government to resettle the asylum seekers in a third country. Patricia Camo, National EMTV News.
The member for Ambunti Drekikir has raised concerns over the appointment and performance of the Spice Commodity Board. Speaking during question time in Parliament this morning, Johnson Wapunai said East APEC province is the leading province in vanilla production. However, the industry board has had no effect in controlling the market and pricing of vanilla, which is a concern. Amanda Rimor reports.
The member for Ambunti Drekiki asked a series of questions to the Agriculture Minister regarding the lack of appointment of board members to commodity boards and especially the Spice Board. He said without adequate board guidance, illegal sales of vanilla in East and West APEC provinces continue to take place.
The plan the man we no license. You go inside the electric from me. Na drink more man no place la buy more green bean, even kiwi bean too. La price all like langam.
In response, Agriculture Minister Benny Allen said his department had completed the process of appointments of all commodity boards. The minister added that there would soon be a policy in place to regulate vanilla and other spices soon.
One can have been finding before. You got risk long by me. One can have been finding before.
Minister Allen also acknowledged that there was also risk involved in the monitoring and controlling process of vanilla as well as other spices.
Maybe get some full spice board in place. Put him in control. Policy law regulating vanilla.
Amanda Rimur, National EMTV News.
Education Minister Nick Kuman has told Parliament that the amount of loans that teachers took out based on their temporary salary increases contributed to the drastic cuts they saw in their pays. Kuman maintains the government was not responsible for the pay cuts. The issue was first highlighted by EMTV when more than 200 teachers in more schools complained that they did not receive the salary amount they expected.
After a month of complaints by teachers, the Education Minister was questioned in Parliament over the deductions to teachers' salaries. In short, he said the government was not responsible for the pay cuts.
Mr. Speaker, there is no deductions at all. There is no deductions from the government that I am aware of.
As part of a long explanation, Kuman gave examples of how teachers would have seen increases to their salaries over the course of the year because of the 3% increase paid by the government, then a drop in their salaries after the temporary increase ended.
It's only that we need to make sure that there must be some responsibility from our provinces, particularly those provinces where you are managing the education system in the province.
The Education Minister went further, highlighting other problems. And one of them was that many teachers had, according to their investigations, taken out loans based on their temporary salaries and then suffered massive deductions after the pay increase ended. The Education Minister's statement in Parliament has revealed several underlying problems. One was that provincial salaries officers allowed teachers to take out more loans than they could handle, and that teachers all over the country have a lot of debt owing to finance companies.
The only deduction that I know, the provinces where the functions are decentralized, you got to pay officers in the province. They are the ones that manage what we call pay deductions, where teacher current deduction form become through long some finance company or money dinner long, and then they agree to how much should be taken out from their pay. So that's exactly what happened. So, for instance, there is a teacher in Omil Primary School in Ley. She obtained 6 loans from 6 different finance companies. And she ended up with 7 kina net pay.
Scott Waide, National MTV News, Ley.
The General Secretary of the PNG Teachers Association, Ugolubu Moana, has called on the government to review the teachers' current payroll system. Moana said the ALESCO system is not adequate to manage the disbursement of teachers' salaries and entitlements. According to the teachers with pay cut issues, it's difficult for them to obtain their pay slips using the ALESCO payroll system.
Let me maintain that the ALESCO system is not adequate enough in itself to manage the disbursement of teacher salaries and entitlements. Since its inception in 2003, 2004, it has been a problem with ALESCO payroll and teachers salaries and disbursement of their entitlements. I maintain that the state must review the ALESCO payroll and probably reconfigure it to suit the disbursement of teacher salaries and entitlements. And I'd also like to ask the state that if there is another human resource payroll system that is available in the country, can we utilize it? Because teaching service is an increasing industry where teachers' population always increasing and it will never decrease. And you compare any other payroll system, education teachers' payroll is the biggest, and you cannot undermine it by a system that is not adequately addressing the disbursement of salaries and entitlements for teachers in Papua New Guinea.
You're watching National MTV News. We go for a break now. When we come back, we'll tell you about the restricted areas for Port Moresby City residents during the upcoming APEC Leaders Summit. After these messages, stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Police Commissioner and Commander of the Joint Security Task Force, Gary Baki, has identified areas that will be restricted to members of the public during the upcoming APEC Leaders Summit. Some of the restricted routes in Port Moresby include Ella Beach, Motukea Wharf, and major access roads within the Waigani area.
Some of the restricted routes in Moresby South include Ella Beach Road and Motukea. In Moresby Northwest are routes like Sir John Guy's Drive and Waigani Drive. In Moresby Northeast are routes in East Boroko and Taurama Road. APEC routes restricted from the public include Independence, Somare Drive, Cora Freeway and Loss Road.
The restricted zone is basically telling our members of the public that where the marker is for you, you don't go beyond that. You simply wave away from that and you do your normal business.
Commissioner Baki said the routes will be open to the public to use at certain times.
The main roads that our VIPs will be using, they will be closed down 30 minutes before the convoy comes in. After they've gone and they pass through, the roads are cleared for members of the public to use. When they're traveling back, 30 minutes before that, the roads will be closed down again. So it's not as if the entire city is going to be on lockdown.
As for the sea, the maritime restricted areas includes Koki and northwest of Manubada Island.
There will be no shops closed. So members of the public can still go out to buy food in whichever shops, as long as they are aware of the fact that the route that they were taking, if it's going to be closed down, they must make sure they don't use it within the 30 minutes before.
Commissioner urged the members of the public to take note and avoid confrontation with the security personnel on the ground.
Because if you come within the declared area that is a restricted area, then you will be most likely to be stopped by members of the security forces and tell you to divert outside of it. Okay, so all I'm asking is I want members of the public to recognize that it is important they conform to the requirements where we have put in place on the restricted zone, so that they don't be faced up with any opportunities of being called by the security forces and removed from those areas. Okay, so
Rosemary Yambune, National MTV News.
The Joint Security Task Force Commander is also satisfied that all security requirements for APEC Leaders Week have been met. Over 4,000 security personnel, local and international, will be deployed to provide security during the APEC Leaders Week. Rayan Lakingu reports.
After the launch of the security operations on Monday, the entire security operations for APEC is now set in motion. There will be 4,000 security officials from the country who will participate in the APEC Joint Task Force. Commander for APEC Joint Security Task Force and Police Commissioner Gary Baki says all activities will now be directed towards getting themselves ready to receive the world leaders.
The security forces have started to do the plans and put them in place. They develop the concept of operations. They work on that concept. They identify the platforms that we will be using for APEC, and that includes air, land, and maritime. Okay, domains that we will be more concentrating on, and at the same time, the support that is required for business as usual to allow activities to be conducted as normal when the leaders are meeting in Port Moresby.
Baki added that there will be also 1,300 foreign troops deployed to assist the Joint Security Task Force. There are also measures in place for foreign troops to ensure they work together to deliver APEC. The foreign troops will be under the command of the Australian Joint Task Force, which is already in the country. So far, they have worked with all international partners in terms of security for APEC over the past 3 years, and Baki is satisfied they have met all the requirements.
The U.S. Coast Guards that will be supporting us, the New Zealanders that will also be supporting us, will be riding on the same platform as the Australians under that arrangements, which is also in consultation with the Joint Task Force Kibung. That's the headquarters of the Papua New Guinea Defence Force in Murray Barracks, where the command element is from there, and it comes up to the headquarters of the Joint Task Force, of which I am the commander.
APEC CEO Christopher Hawkins also expressed satisfaction and is confident that the Joint Task Force will provide the best security during the Leaders Summit week.
From the many years that I've been involved in APEC, I can say that this has been a security operation that has been well planned from the start to where we are now, and not at the finish for some weeks yet.
Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
The Papua New Guinea Correctional Service is also APEC ready. This was announced at a parade today by Deputy CS Commissioner Dennis Piandi. 365 CS personnel from across the country are engaged in APEC security operations through the Joint Security Task Force.
The Bomana Correctional Service Center today witnessed a parade by CS personnel engaged in the APEC Leaders Week security operations. The parade was inspected by Dennis Piandi, the Acting Commissioner of Operations. Mr. Piandi gave the keynote address on behalf of the Acting Commissioner, Stefan Pokanis.
Call upon each and every one of you to be at your best. You're not representing yourself, but you're representing the Correction Service and Papua New Guinea. The eyes of the public will be watching you.
He further added that the APEC operations would not disrupt the CS recruitment exercise currently being undertaken.
Allow the selection of who's to be engaged in these activities to the commanders, the jail commanders. So they work out their own manpower, their strengths, their weaknesses, and they release men to us.
Since Monday this week, CS personnel have been engaged in operations with the colleagues from the other security forces. The operations will continue until the conclusion of APEC meetings on November 18th. Tamara Pia Agavi, National EMTV News.
The Joint Security Task Force has identified a designated peaceful assembly area during the APEC Leaders Week. The Police Commissioner and Commander of the JSTF, Gary Baki, in compliance with the APEC Security Act, declared Unagi Oval as a peaceful assembly area. The commander said city residents who wish to protest must register their intentions to protest 72 hours before their protest time, and the registration must include who is protesting, why they intend to protest, when they plan to stage their protest and for how long it will last. He said if a protest is found to be disruptive and in violation, the JSTF will have the authority to arrest the prosecutor and stop the protest. The commander said this is to provide a safe and secure environment during the APEC Leaders Summit. With the APEC Leaders Summit just a week away, the Catholic Bishops' Conference is concerned about the high spending and what it claims is unequal distribution of wealth. In a crumbling service delivery chain, the Catholic Church has questioned whether APEC will bring intangible benefits to rural communities.
APEC has been a talking point for most Papua New Guineans, and ordinary citizens still lack the full understanding of APEC as we approach the Leaders Summit from the 15th to the 17th of November, where leaders and delegates from the 21 APEC economies will be in the nation to discuss investment opportunities and trade among other issues, and PNG is looking to be the biggest benefiter as the host nation. But in contrast, Papua New Guinea is still lacking in basic service delivery and holding together a strong economy. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has embraced the inevitability of PNG hosting the APEC Leaders Summit next week, but is asking if post-APEC, PNG will see benefits coming after the high-level talks.
So we must now look at life after the APEC. So we can only hope for its success. This can only mean that the welfare of the poorest people of Papua New Guinea will somehow indirectly be improved.
President of the CBC, Bishop Rogus Tatamai, says they had meetings among bishops of the Catholic Church and with the PNG Council of Churches, and their discussions have found people talk about APEC yet understand very little.
One of the leaders just got a phone call today. There is a market in Ley where everybody is meeting to sell betel nuts, and everybody forgot about selling betel nuts and are discussing APEC. And they are all asking the question, what is APEC? So they called this church leader to ask him, can he explain what is APEC?
Bishop Tatamai said what APEC is showing to the world and to the citizens is the unequal distribution of wealth. With high spending as a host nation, the country still faces problems in the public service and service delivery.
There is simply not an equal distribution of the national wealth to hosting of APEC to all people in Papua New Guinea. Despite all the rhetoric and all that we can say about the goodness and the benefits of this event, the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poorer.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
You're with National EMTV News this Wednesday. We go for a break and be back with more stories on the local front when we return. Welcome back to National EMTV News. The policeman who was involved in the road accident that claimed the lives of 3 people in Milne Bay Province is now in police custody. The 3 who died include 2 little girls between 5 and 7 years of age and an elderly woman. Milne Bay Police Commander George Bayagao says while most business houses and schools have remained closed since yesterday, police officers are trying to contain the situation.
As of Monday, most business houses, schools and commercial banks have been closed following the accident that claimed the lives of 3 people. Business houses and other government bodies in ALotau remain temporarily shut today.
The vehicle was driven by a by a policeman, and it's a hire car. It's a hire car used by the team that came in from Ley. Yes.
The incident occurred at Quaini, a few kilometers before ALotau town. 5 people were injured. 2 died at the accident site and 1 died later at the hospital. The other 2 are in critical condition at the hospital.
And we are yet to establish because whether it's a mechanical problem or it is his negligence in terms of what he did, but he ran off the road. And when he ran off the road, there are pedestrians there that were getting ready to board the PMV buses, but unfortunately, he ran straight into them.
Yesterday, angry locals blocked off the highway leading into ALotau and burnt tires to show their frustration over the 3 deaths.
Villages have grouped up to attack the police. So we've sent reinforcements in the morning, and there is also another contingent of 10 police officers standing by, mobile squad, to be flown in the event the situation gets out of hand.
Their demands to concerned local authorities include proper burials for the 3 who died. Thakla Gunga, National EMTV News.
During the swearing-in ceremony of the newly appointed accountant ombudsman yesterday in Port Moresby, Ombudsman Richard Pagan mentioned some of the Ombudsman Commission's responsibilities. He says the OC respects and administers natural justice as a law that is seen to be applied fully, and legally it must be appointed.
The Ombudsman Commission is an institution that assists ordinary people throughout the country, aggrieved by actions or inactions of the bureaucracy of any institutions of the government. Ombudsman Richard Pagan says that the Ombudsman Commission's responsibility is to investigate matters if and only when there is evidence.
Ombudsman Commission does not need to wait for complainants to come and lodge complaints. Ombudsman Commission has jurisdiction. Ombudsman Commission has power to commence investigations on its own initiative. So issue that as reason out of a government conduct or government action, it is caused by an agency or a servant of a government, and that has caused disharmony, grievances to the community, the general public. It's a matter that Ombudsman Commission takes on.
The Chief Ombudsman and the 2 Ombudsmen are appointed by the Governor General, acting with and in accordance with the advice of the Ombudsman Appointment Committee. This committee consists of the Prime Minister as Chairman, the Chief Justice, the Leader of the Opposition, the Chairman of the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Appointments, and the Chairman of the Public Services Commission. Chief Ombudsman Michael Dix says with the appointment of Kevin Kepore, the Commission is ready.
It's very important, especially when it comes to considering leadership matters, that we need 3 full members of the Commission to make balanced decisions. Therefore, having Mr. Kepore on board will facilitate for that need.
Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
The Road Traffic Authority is urging provincial governments to partner and implement the 2014 Road Traffic Act. Chief Executive Officer Nelson Terma says this will enable provincial governments to have powers to effect the new act. Mr. Terma told MTV the increasing number of road accidents is because laws are not implemented on a daily basis.
Mr. Terma says the partnership with provincial governments will tighten loopholes in traffic laws. Speaking during a consultation with officers from 22 provincial governments, Mr. Terma said the new act must be understood and implemented.
We will be delegating these functions to the provinces, so the provinces must take ownership of these land transport services, so that we will be oversighting their performance in the future.
The 2014 Road Traffic Act came into effect on June 1st. 6 months into implementation, most provinces have not partnered with RTA. The Chief Executive Officer says provincial administrations must join hands with RTA to regulate traffic laws of the country.
It looks like a lot of provinces will be signing up with RTA. We will be working in partnership to improve land transport services in the country. So that is the whole reason why we conducted this workshop.
The consultation today saw participants exchange questions of the 2014 Road Traffic Act and details of the partnership with RTA. Meanwhile, Mr. Terma says by giving powers to provincial governments, it will not only tighten traffic laws, but also provide an income to levels of government.
And generate revenue for the province, and at the same time provide improved public transport at the respective provinces.
A handful of provinces did not attend the one-day consultation meet. An agreement between Road Traffic Authority and provincial governments is expected to be signed to embrace this partnership. Jack Lombrum Jr., National EMTV News.
The board of the National Capital District Commission this week welcomed its newest commissioner, Dadi Toka. Mr. Toka now assumes the role as Deputy Governor following his recent election as Chairman of the Motu Koita Assembly. In welcoming Mr. Toka to the NCDC board role, Port Moresby City Manager Bernard Kippit promised to work together with Mr. Toka for a better Motu Koita.
Deputy
Newly appointed chairman of Motu Koita Assembly, Daddy Toka Jr., was officially sworn in as a commissioner on the NCDC board today. He is the third chairman of the assembly since its establishment. Addressing the occasion, Port Moresby City Manager Bernard Kipit says Mr. Toka comes with a lot of experience and is looking forward to working with him to bring services to the people.
His inclusion, in NCD as a member of the Commission Board is very important because it helps to improve, on the quorum of the NCDC Board. Furthermore, his inclusion is very important because, as you know, Motu Koita is part of NCDC.
As chairman of the MKA, Mr. Toka also assumes the role of deputy governor for NCD. NCD Governor Powes Pakop welcomed Mr. Toka to his new role and urged the people of Motu Koita to work together with the chairman to see change in their area. The governor stressed that NCDC is not completed without Motu Koita communities and assured the deputy governor that NCDC will partner with them to realize major infrastructure development in Motu Koitabu areas.
I want to work with them more, and I want to assure him that I'm here to be your partner. But this time too, I want to be more proactive. We will support you all in your program. The resources that we are legally required to give you all, we will give you all.
Today's swearing-in ceremony was also witnessed by members of the Motu Koita Assembly. After signing his oath of office, Mr. Toka assured all members that Motu Koita would move forward through new ideas and young, vibrant leaders. And in his capacity as chairman of the MKA, he is ready to work with the NCDC governor and the members of his assembly to see change in Motu Koita. Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
The Papua New Guinea Civil and Identity Registry is still slow in its process of registering all citizens at a much faster rate due to how it was designed. Acting Registrar General Noel Mobiha says the manner in which the NID project was designed has a lot of limitations, saying the system was not designed to cater for the technological changes in this era.
The National Identity Project, since its launching on November 2014, it has so far issued 300,000 NID cards and 360,000 birth certificates. There are still more than 7 million people yet to be registered. Acting Registrar General Noel Mobiha admits the process is slow due to how it was designed. Another problem is that the mobile kits they have are outdated, and it is not possible for staff in all the provinces to go out and register citizens.
Why didn't we design a system at that time which allows easy access? If people just come, you type it all in, it goes straight through without going through a double process. So those are things that with the slowness. The other thing is, in terms of staff, we ram up anytime. Now we can ram up. The issues we have is the mobile kits that we have, and our function is not to register in the office. We would like to think that we'll come to the population, like we'll take the kids out to the villages and register and stay with the people and do the registration there.
The PNG Civil and Identity Registry is also carrying out a program with all the government departments in Port Moresby to register public servants. By the 31st of next month, all public servants must have NID cards. They expect this to cut down instances of fraud on the payroll system.
So if you don't have an NID card number and nobody knows about you, you won't get paid.
Meanwhile, the difficult task in this exercise are the teachers, as they have the largest number of workforce, and most of them are working in the very remote areas of the provinces. Martha Louise, National EMTV News, Medang.
And the Civil and Identity Registry is hosting a two-day Momasa Regional Consultation Workshop in Madang to review and revise the Civil Registration Act of 1963. The Act was only amended in 2014 to take on board the NID project. This consultation is the major review and overhaul of the Act itself. Acting Registrar General Noel Mobiha explained the new drafting of the bill is to cater for the modern technological changes taking place.
The two-day workshop, which began on Monday, brought together selected representatives from Omase region, provincial governments, other government agencies, and development partners. The gathering is also to inform various government entities to prepare consequent amendments to laws under their mandate, which may impact the Civil Registry and Vital Statistics, or CRVS.
And now this one is actually the major review and overhaul of the Act. And basically it's a drafting of the bill to show the changes that have taken place to reflect what is the actual norm in this day and age.
CRVS is a combination of two different systems: civil registration, a system of permanent and continuous registration of various vital events such as birth and marriages, and vital statistics, which is the process of producing appropriate and diverse statistics that are based on civil registration data for policy and program development.
Civil registration is the collection of information, which is we collect deaths, when somebody is born, we add them onto the register. When somebody dies, we take them off the register. So we call ourselves the plus and minus team.
The workshop is to establish a legal framework so it can allow various government entities to collaborate and contribute data to the civil registry and vital statistics. For now, the PNG Civil and Identity Registry is not able to share data that is being collected.
To capture all that, you need the regulatory framework, or the legal framework, to protect the use and the functions and the distribution of the data. What you see in there is the process that's going through the Act now to make sure that all of that is covered.
Martha Luis, National EMTV News, Medeng.
Jiwaka Province is venturing into multi-million kina agriculture and dairy projects. Experts from New Zealand will be in the country early next year to provide technical support to Jiwaka Development Agency, the business arm of the provincial government. The development agency has already signed a memorandum of understanding with a local cattle farm to start this project.
In preparation for the technical team from New Zealand to arrive in PNG next year, Jiwaka Development Agency bought the first 50 cows, costing 71,000 kina, from the Christian Leaders Training College in Barnes, Jiwaka Province. The cows will be looked after by CLTC, while the development agency identifies more land to have cattle farms set up in Jiwaka. The MOA also agrees for CLTC to work in partnership with Jiwaka Development Agency to grow rice in the province.
Every 6 months we will be buying, CLTC will be supplying 50 cows to Jiwaka Development Corporation, and Jiwaka Development Corporation will distribute 5-10 cows each to farmers who are interested in looking after cattle for dairy in future. So we just want
A 250,000 hectares of land was allocated to grow the local Jiwaka rice. More than 600,000 seedlings of citrus fruits, such as orange and mandarin, are ready to be planted. Jiwaka Governor Dr. William Tongam says the province has a role to play to grow PNG's economy by investing in agriculture. A citrus processing plant will be built in Jiwaka to produce juice. Dairy products such as milk and cheese will be locally produced, including the growing of local rice products. This will help reduce importing of foreign products and exporting more overseas.
The long term is we want to do a dairy industry in the province, milk and milk products and stuff like this. Milk prices on shelves have been very expensive.
A total of 4,600 hectares of smallholder coffee plantations were identified and will be revived by the National Plantation Management Agency. Once revived, Jiwaka Development Agency will be looking at making millions of kina in their revenue. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Mount Hagen.
You're watching National MTV News. We go for a break and be back with some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Team manager of PNG Powerlifting, Philip Priestley, says preparations for this year's Oceania Powerlifting Championships are on schedule. He says he's hoping to see at least 15 athletes attend the tournament at the end of this month on the Gold Coast.
After having a proper national titles held at the Ben Moide Club last month, team manager of PNG Powerlifting Philip Priestley says it is an opportunity to select athletes from all over the country for the Oceania Championship.
It all depends on costings and how much it's going to take to get a large team down. Of course, we would like to get as many of our PNG athletes down there as possible to try and establish, because of the trouble that's been with the IPF this year with Robert Wilkes in the Australian Powerlifting Federation.
He says the number of athletes for the Oceania Championship could go up because of the number of medals won at the National Championship.
Turnout of powerlifters who trying to make a comeback from having done nothing since the Games in 2015. It was a chance for us to see who is actually improving and who has been training, who hasn't been training. So it was good for the sport. And it also gave us a chance to, because we're short on the executive side, we needed a general secretary, of which one was voted in during that titles.
Philip also added that despite continuous success, the code has also struggled with financial difficulties.
Acknowledgement from the PNG OC or the government about how well we've done, yet the weightlifters go away and they win a few medals and everybody's up and down and giving them lots and lots of money. Whereas, you know, we have won in the last 12 months more, well, since 2015, we've won more gold medals, silver medals than weightlifting. And we do not get that recognition by the government or the sports body, which is a shame.
The Oceania Powerlifting Championship 2018 will take place in Gold Coast, Australia on the 25th of November. Porivai, National MTV Sports.
Acting Director of High Performance Sport PNG, Cornelius Papau, told MTV Sports Today that the recent coaches meeting in the Gold Coast, Australia is helpful in terms of Team PNG's preparations for next year's Pacific Games in Samoa. He says not only are the coaches trained and coached to also upskill, but will also share their experiences and teach in their respective communities and sports which they are involved with.
The 6 days coach study tour in Gold Coast was really an excellent pathway for the coaches, and also the preparation for the Pacific Games in Samoa. Most of the days was all full with informations. There's few that we have leadership and strategy activities with the coaches. So it's a very, very important time for them to get their mind focused on their sport and also the Pacific Games in Samoa. We're going to be having a pre-workshops and programs and activities during next year for the Pacific Games. So we're planning with other national federations also to be part of it. And the 36 coaches that went down to Gold Coast and come back, we really want them to really come back and share that information and mentor the national federations. It's a very, very important time. A couple of the equipments that never been here in PNG, you know, they have seen it, and pretty much will help them to grow their knowledge and also the understanding of now that they can understand that the sports in the world plus athletes and games have changed.
We'll go for a quick break and be back with more of Trukai Sports after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. 30 athletes and 6 support staff from the High Performance Centre travelled to Australia today. These athletes will go through a one-week sports leadership summit.
This leadership summit will be held for 7 days, where PNG athletes will go through different activities which include lectures and workshops.
With world-class lecturers
We have our partners like the Australian Catholic University, Bond University, Griffith, Queensland Academy of Sport, and we also have some fun activities in there like volleyball games, a high ropes obstacle course.
The summit helps athletes expand their mindsets and helps them to become better athletes. HPS not only concentrates on the physical aspects of an athlete, but mental as well.
A growth mindset, so we want them, we will focus on the holistic approach. That's what we do at High Performance. So we not only focus on the physical aspects in the gym, we also like to focus on the mental aspects and the life outside of sport. And that's what we're aiming to do with this Leadership Summit.
The 30-person traveling crew has a mixture of elite and upcoming athletes. Lonbola Piwen Karkar says she hopes to learn many new things during her time in Gold Coast.
I'm excited and honored to be part of the high performance training. It's been, for me, I think that I will learn a lot, and when I come back I'll share my experience with my other colleagues. I'm hoping to learn a lot of new things. It's exciting and interesting meeting other young people. For me, I'm just happy, exciting.
This will be Dikana Ugava's first time to attend a leadership summit. He says he's looking forward to this new experience.
I am in the sport of archery, particularly compound bow, and this trip is my first time to travel to overseas. And I am more than excited to go and learn to the best of my ability on this Leadership Summit at Gold Coast.
After the week-long summit, the athletes will return to Port Moresby. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
And that wraps up Trukai Sports for this evening. We go for a quick break and be back with the weather for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
I'll look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. In the southern region, cloudy weather expected in Popondetta and ALotau, a shower or two for Kerma, mostly fine in Daru, partly cloudy for Port Moresby.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Wednesday the 7th of November 2018. On behalf of the entire EMTV News team right around the country, pleasant viewing. Good night.